In this lesson, we're going to talk about dressing our sets to look more realistic and help us tell a story. Alright, so the concept behind set dressing is to tell a story for your particular scene. Now, even if a particular set is for just a still image or something like that, it really does need to have that element of a story to it. For example, if we take a look at this scene, in my personal opinion, it's very, very bland. Everything is very organized, straight angles, very, very clean, and is really lacking the character that it needs to really set this environment off. So looking at it, we're really close. We've done all the major modeling at this portion, but it's still just lacking that character. So some things that we could do to this particular scene could be to kind of disorganize it a little bit. Even though we may have particular characters that are extremely organized and very obsessive over straight angles and things like that, there's always going to be a little bit of an element of disorganization, whether that be a chair or something like that is just kind of rotated off a little bit in one particular angle, and another one maybe being pulled away from the wall a little bit, and then even having the angle kind of inward, something like that. Picture frames might even have those kind of angled a little bit. Now, you don't want to do like something like 5 degrees. I mean, that may be off just a little bit too much, so we'll want to turn off our snapping and just kind of take that in a different direction a little bit. Just kind of set that off kilter. Okay. Another great example would be something like these books on a shelf. Normally books like this set straight up like that normally doesn't happen too often. They're spaced evenly, and even then really not something that happens. So you might want to kind of break up that overall look by maybe taking these out, spacing them out a little bit more, taking this one. You can have books together. We could come in and just kind of pull them out away from the wall a little bit. Okay, and while they do look straight from a distance, they do need to be kind of just angled a little bit differently. You might even take this one at the end and pull it out and then rotate it to where it kind of leans against the others. That's another good way of just kind of setting this up, making it look a little more believable and lived in. Something like this ornament, or something like that, maybe pulled away from the shelf or pushed all the way up against the wall. Something like that. It doesn't need to be centered, just like so. We have this light here that's up against the wall. It might be kind of off-center a little bit, maybe not directly under that shelf. Could even have it rotated a little bit. Instead of just having angular walls and angular objects, we could just rotate them. And it can still be centered, but by rotating it diagonally, that breaks up all of these angles that are just straight and 90 degrees. Another thing would be to kind of adjust these curtains, right? Make one a little bit, close up a little bit more, something along those lines. We have this FFD modifier, which allows us to select control points and then modify it that way, so we can actually close it most of the way there. Okay. Another thing that we could do is we could come in and tell a totally different story by having this room here really messed up. I mean, just not even just with textures, but just with the models themselves. So like the pillows on the chairs are very neat and organized. We could actually take those, and they're actually grouped right now. So if I go to Group and Open, I can select that pillow, and let's say that we just kind of rotate it in the chair to where it doesn't even look like it is sitting up properly. I don't know if you have children at your home, like mine. It seems like the cushions are never on the chairs. So, I mean, we could say that that there are actually people actually living in this place. So, something along these lines, might want to pull that bend down a little bit to kind of just change the shape of that pillow. And something I want you to notice about some of these different objects, I'm ready for set dressing at this point, and I have a lot of the different objects just kind of ready to be able to change shape. So like these pillows, I have that bend modifier. I didn't collapse that down purposely because let's say that later on we wanted to change this scene up altogether and we want it to be a little bit different. So I could modify my bend if absolutely necessary. And I could even change where it bends. So if I modify this a little bit and then I adjust my angle, okay, so something kind of along those lines. So here you can see that, you know, using this, the modifiers on particular objects like this can be really helpful. Okay, so now taking a look at this, if we select our object and we go to Edit, Group, and Close, make sure you close that so it's grouped back together again. We've changed the scene up a little bit. We might even have pillows that are off of the floor. We have this rug that's kind of pulled out and angled. And let's say that it's just not set up correctly. We might even have a chair that's flipped over altogether. Okay, maybe this scene has gone particularly totally in a different direction altogether. We can open this up and select our pillow. Let me take my angle back down to 0 so that way we can just set it flat onto the ground. Okay, something like so. Okay, so it kind of just rests there. So this has completely changed the overall look of our objects. So we can take these particular objects here on our chair and we can just rotate those on their own. Let's go ahead and close that. Okay, so it's all about what you're trying to tell in your scene altogether. Okay, is the house sacked? Is it supposed to look this way? Maybe we have the picture frame is totally off kilter and on the floor. Okay, and it might even be off the wall completely, and that's what's leaning up against the chairs in one particular scene here. So again, set dressing is all about telling a story, and this is a part that I really enjoy about modeling environments and things like that, is, you know, just being able to tell a particular story really makes things come to life. I'm going to set this to local. Usually whenever you're set dressing objects, whenever you're rotating and moving them, local is usually the best place to be on your reference coordinate system. So just some things to keep in mind. Also, just pay attention to penetration between other objects. We don't want things like that. So we may have to move objects around. Okay. So again, here you can see that we've completely changed the way this looks by just taking objects, pulling them off, setting them up in a different position, and again, just telling a different story altogether. Okay, so set dressing concepts, like I said, it's all about telling a story, conveying a specific mood in your particular scene. Whatever you're trying to go for, dress it that way. You may have to create different objects to kind of tell that story a little bit further, but that sort of thing should already be established at this point. Now, set dressing can be used universally through animations, still images, or games altogether. If you get into games and things like that, the base environment for games looks very drab. It doesn't tell a story, it doesn't let the player know what's going on, and so we have lots and lots of props that we put in to a level to really make that environment come to life. And the same concept goes for still images as well as animations. So now that we've talked about set dressing and those concepts, now we're going to be moving into our final particular lesson, talking about a couple of different tips, and this is going to be on asset cleanup and organization. So I'll see you in the next lesson.